delegates, representatives of the permanent missions to the OAS, participants, and those who are with us in person and online. On behalf of the OAS and the IDB, we would like to extend a warm welcome to our house, the House of the Soldier. And this is our inaugural session of a forum on CBMs. And I would like to express our acknowledgement to the OAS for the excellent management of this space for dialogue and cooperation, as well as our staunch commitment to our efforts aimed at strengthening hemispheric security and defense. CBMs have been fundamental for dismantling conflicts, as well as ensuring more cooperative and transparent relations between our states. In an increasingly interconnected world, these measures have allowed us to work together as we address challenges that go from traditional threats to emerging threats, such as transnational organized crime, cybersecurity, and the response to natural disasters. As part of this effort, not only do we have military efforts playing a key role, but also the entire organization as a whole, including experts, governments, educational institutions, and many different companies. Hemispheric security requires a comprehensive multidimensional approach where all sectors play a part according to their abilities and knowledge to strengthen our regional stability. Against this backdrop, our armed forces play a key role. Throughout the years, we have seen how shared exercises between the interests of our militaries, as well as exchange of information and joint efforts by our militaries, work to cooperate with civilian societies, where this cooperation has strengthened cooperation between our countries. And along these lines, the IDB has been working closely with member states in order to promote these initiatives, such as consultative, educational, and technical efforts within the inter-American system. Our work is focused on strategic analyses, facilitating cooperation between our military and security forces, as well as training future leaders through the Inter-American Defense College. Similarly, we have collaborated with the Hemispheric Defense Commission of the OAS in order to promote monitoring and transparency of fulfillment of our commitments shouldered with states. I would like to underscore here exchange of information, promoting transparency, and notifying of defense and military activities. Initiatives like these allow us to build mutual trust and confidence and lays the groundwork for greater regional stability. Against this backdrop, the SMS and its various areas play an essential role in preventing and responding to emerging threats. Through these efforts in cybersecurity, reducing arms and ammunition trafficking, reducing the supply of drugs, preventing terrorism, fighting against the proliferation of WMDs and anti-mining activities to support communities, we have been strengthening our emergency and security systems, building protection that is timely and efficient throughout the hemisphere in the face of various threats, and we've been able to act as a whole. We must continue to promote open dialogue, updating CBMs in order to adapt them to new challenges and implement innovative mechanisms to strengthen our collective security. In this forum, we have an opportunity to exchange experiences and identify best practices to consolidate our strategies that allow us to move forward closer to our goals. We would like to thank the OAS and the American Defense Board We strongly believe that the work that we carry out in this space will be a contribution to continuing to strengthen cooperation and trust between our nations. I give deep thanks to all of you for your participation and reiterate this international entity's commitment to continuing to support our efforts in defense and security at the hemispheric level. I wish you both success and thank you very much. Thank you very much to the President of the Council of Delegates of the IADB, and I would now like to give the floor to the Secretary for Multidimensional Security of the OAS, Mr. Ivan Marques. I give you the floor. Thank you very much, Chair, Ambassador, Chair of the 11th Forum on CBMs, Ambassador Jacinth Henry Martin, the Chair of the CSH at the OAS, my friend, the General Director of the Secretariats of the IDB, distinguished ambassadors, delegates to the OAS, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to be with all of you today in this inaugural session of the 11th Forum on CDMs. And this is a key space to reflect on the progress made and challenges in promoting transparency and cooperation in our region. Unfortunately, over the last several years, our world has risen the alert on the threat of armed conflict, which has a devastating impact on our communities. Though we have not yet seen armed conflict in the Americas for many years now, we do know that we live in an increasingly interconnected world. The nefarious consequences of these conflicts are not limited to the regions that are directly impacted. There are humanitarian and economic impacts that are felt hundreds of kilometers away, and here the OAS member states recognizes that the CBMs are an essential pillar in strengthening mutual trust and confidence between our member states. These measures not only promote dialogue and cooperation, they also allow us to prevent conflict and promote peace throughout our hemisphere. CBMs and transparency in defense policies are vital to avoiding an escalating conflict between our states. We must promote bridges of dialogue. We have recognized CBMs in the Declaration on Security in the Americas, and this is something that has been mentioned at the OAS. And through our work in this forum, which is a resolution from the GA, we have seminars and workshops that have been adopted as concrete steps forward to promoting transparency and CBMs at the regional level. We have been working to promote CBMs at the OAS along with traditional measures, and we have combined this with non-traditional measures, which stem from our definition of security and the role of the armed forces in the region. Along these lines, we have measures related to border control, transparency on state arsenals, the acquisition of conventional weapons, military exercises, including joint exercises, including those using non-traditional weapons, as well as humanitarian missions and fighting transnational organized crime. This is all vital for promoting regional cooperation and assisting the OAS in its endeavor to achieve peace and prosperity in the region. From the SMS, we will continue to give impetus to efforts put forth by member states, particularly in January of 2024, the Department of Public Security of the Secretariat held a hybrid high-level seminar in cooperation with the UN Office on Security, and there were several different sessions with government and technical experts to discuss implementation of the CBMs, and we had hundreds of participants that took part in the event, including high-level civil servants and members of the military from OAS member states, as well as some permanent observer states. At this occasion, we launched the new electronic platform for annual reports from countries on the state of CBMs. As you all recall, after many years, this tool is no longer active due to a lack of resources. This was an obstacle to sending reports by member states. Thanks to the generous contribution of the Brazilian government through its Navy, we have a modern functional system which facilitates reports on activities related to CBMs that have been adopted by our OSGA. Since launching the platform and promoting CBMs that are military in nature, and the Department of Public Security have been working very closely with the American Defense Board in order to promote the use of this tool. It has been updated, and we have been developing a series of staff trainings for member states, as well as promoting cooperation and the use of this platform. This afternoon, the DPS will be holding a presentation on how states have responded and how they can use this new tool. I strongly believe that submitting reports through the platform is fundamental to promoting transparency and strengthening hemispheric security cooperation. I invite all member states to take advantage of that platform in order to share your experience and progress, thereby contributing to consolidating an environment of greater trust and confidence throughout our region. During today's forum, we will also have an opportunity to discuss other key topics, such as the impact of new technology on regional security. These debates will be a priceless opportunity for us to promote our cooperation and strengthen our strategies that we share. From the Secretariat of Multidimensional Security, I would like to reiterate our commitment to continuing to support all of you as member states in implementing these measures and to continuing to work in very close cooperation with the IDB as well as other key stakeholders. I wish you most success in this forum, and I am certain that your debates will be fruitful and contribute to strengthening trust and security in our region. Thank you.
I thank Secretary Marquez for his comments. Colleagues, more than 3 decades have elapsed since the General Assembly, the OAS, through resolution AG bar 1199, where it encouraged that members of the state, the various member states, address the fostering of relative confidence security building measures, conventional armed forces, including prior notification of determined military activities, invitation to observers for the timely exchange of information and communication. Since then, the member states of the OAS have made considerable progress in our efforts to improve security. We've developed a series of confidence and security building measures to foster cooperation amongst ourselves. That includes optimizing electronic platforms in order to present the annual reports relating to the implementation of these measures. This is an effort that we need to continue with as we continue to support and consolidate peacekeeping in the region, and at the same time devote efforts to support our communities. We know that the continuous efforts in the region are going to help in moving forward in this key priority. Let's begin now with our first plenary session with the approval of the draft agenda and calendar. Before we begin the first plenary session, I would like to just inform the distinguished delegates by the name of, if you have anything you'd like to state, we will just ask that you please raise your card with your name and your country's name, and we would like to inform you that we will continue to provide you with a digital support of this type, where you can just scan the QR code that you find on the screen, just follow the instructions. We will now begin with the first document for this forum. I would like to ask if the delegations would like to offer their support for approval of this document. If there are no comments or remarks, then the draft agenda calendar is formally approved relating to confidence security building measures. The document is formally approved. Let's now move on to second plenary session issue or item. We will now continue with the plenary, and we will begin with the presentations by the Department of Public Security of the Inter-American Defense Board relating progress made in implementation of CSBMs, looking afterwards with the possible new areas for the development of confidence security building measures. For the presentation given by the Department of Public Security, I would now like to offer the floor to the chief of the section of conventional weapons, munitions, explosives, to Pierre Angeli De Luca and Mr. Juan Carlos Melgar, who is a official of this section. They will address the update of the electronic platform for presenting reports from the list of confidence security building measures. And Ms. Luca, you now have the floor. Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to just convey my greetings to everyone, welcoming you to the forum. I'm going to begin the presentation, as the chair indicated, about the current status of the electronic platform for reporting the list of CSBMs. As you know, the platform is essential in order to fulfill the objectives stated, because without transparency, we will not be able to make meaningful progress in establishing bridges and fostering confidence and security building in such an important undertaking. Just to sum up the history of the platform's development, we've already presented some of this data in the past. In 2021, we began to see some specific challenges, in particular when we saw an update for the measures to include new measures that had been approved by in the area of general security. So working in support by the OAS and the Department of Technology Services, realized that the system collapsed because of a lack of updates. We had a complete collapse of the platform in 2023 because of that lack of updating of systems, databases, also not keeping up to date with security measures, making it incompatible with the OAS system. This prevented many states from adequately reporting updates. So on the basis of this collapse and a lack of resources, we had to finally rely on the generous contribution of the Brazilian Navy. This was done through cooperation efforts jointly with the Inter-American Defense Board, our partner, in order to be able to upgrade the platform. This was done through the Department of Public Security and the Department of Technology Services of the OAS and the Brazilian Navy. In January 2024, as the Secretary mentioned, we launched the new platform. This was during a high-level event working with the UN Disarmament Agency. So we announced the launching of this platform, which in addition to rectifying many of the security challenges and the lack of upgrades to the databases that were generating errors for users, the effort also included other improvements in order to enable a more timely platform delivery of services. And in order to train the users, we conducted a joint effort with the IADB to communicate all of the member states of the OAS to please include information about the authorization level of users and to be able to enable the users to not only put and post information from 2023, but also 2022, the information that had not been updated. During the second half of 2024, countries began to identify new users. And in June of 2024, we held a joint workshop with the IDB looking at how the countries could structure and use this new platform and its services. Here, I'd like to briefly share with you some of the specific characteristics. This is the visuals, as you can see, remain pretty much the same as the previous web page to enhance greater adaptation. So if we look at the public access area, this is accessible to all users that seeks to provide greater transparency in defense-related areas. Now, if we look in the public access area, we improved the graphics, we made them more interactive. So users, members of the community could all access the platform and have a better experience in understanding the current realities of the region. Now, if we look at the private access area, we also increased and we put improvements in order to enhance the uploading and downloading information. The content is in all four of the official OAS languages. Here we have the public access area, the charts. These charts did not allow any sort of filtering, and this created difficulties in focusing on specific measures and get a better understanding how countries are responding. Now, we do have these filters that are available by country, by time period, countries that include most measures, the types of confidence security building measures reflected in charts, and it's also grouped by traditional and non-traditional CSBMs, where you can see other graphic content that's available, providing more detailed information as to how each country is presenting the information in the platform. Now, moving on to the private access area, we have a scaling up system with different levels of users that try to facilitate the use of information. The list of CSBMs includes measures that are implemented by various sectors in individual countries. These are not exclusive to the armed forces, law enforcement agencies. Many of the non-traditional measures also include other sectors that implement them, such as, for example, humanitarian demining operations. And what can be done with this is that each country can have decentralized users. So we have some challenges in reporting. There is an overload of information that countries are required to submit. Each country, in this case, can have users in the various organizations that implement these measures. For these users to be able to begin with the initial loading of information, and then you'll have some oversight, reviewing the content, and then publishing this information that is valid for each country. We have users who are specialists who are involved in uploading the information. And we have multiple specialists in each country and various organizations that are responsible for the oversight of the content of CSBMs, can review them, edit them, and those administrators by sector that allow for each country to identify their community of new users. So this is a macro level user that can generate new supervisory and other users and personnel. Sometimes we need to update these lists, and this is a much more expeditious process that does not require any sort of official communication to the IADB or the OAS. The only ones with these organizations would be, again, with regards to the sectoral administrations. Now, in order to improve these structures, we have editing, correcting of errors. We've included some automation key focus areas. We have bilateral, multilateral areas that include multiple country involvement. In the past, each individual country had to upload the information on its own. And what we saw was that country A, country B, C, they were reporting the same measures, and this put a dual load on these efforts. Now, the first country that uploads the information, it's done through the platform as if it were a tag, as we see in social media, where you tag that information. And here, This will provide notification to other users from other countries so that they can give their okay and approval to include that in their list of reported measures. So that way we avoid a duplication of effort, not reporting the same type of measure. We also had automatic notifications. When specialists upload information, now supervisors are informed, and that way they can publish the information. In the past, it would depend on having the supervisor going in and getting that information and reporting it. So I just wanted to provide you with the current status of the platform, which is much more interoperable and functional. And again, this is a big part of that effort to improve the data. We know that a lot of this depends on resources available, but we're working with the IDB through other cooperative measures to increase the operational and functionality activities. So here we have the minimum necessary so that countries can understand the current status and reality of each country. We've seen an increase in activities reported over the last few years. And now I offer the floor to my colleague, Juan Carlos Melgar, who will provide you with a little more detailed information of some of these efforts. Thank you, Ms. De Luca. Juan Carlos Melgar, you have the floor. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. As we continue with the presentation, as was already clearly expressed by my colleague, I'm going to just provide you a review and an update of all of the results relating to confidence security building measures. For 2022 and 2023, we see in the next slide the list of countries, and that has a listing based on the number of activities reported, starting with Argentina, then Brazil, Mexico, Colombia. We also have El Salvador, Guatemala, Guyana, Dominican Republic, and Uruguay. We're also able to categorize this, both we can divide them up and categorize them by traditional and non-traditional measures. So that's an advantage with the new platform. Looking at the traditional measures for the years 2022 and 2023, we can see traditional measure number 6 relating to the exchange of civilian and military personnel. That's got 613 reports. And we have traditional measure number 2. That's the hosting of several high-level meetings with participation by the defense and foreign ministries. We also have traditional measure 14 with 133 reports that is focused on the holding of meetings aimed at preventing security and increase maritime and air surveillance and security. Moving on to non-traditional measures, number 30, that is related to increasing cooperation and exchange of information. This consists of 39 reports. Traditional measure number 37 with 16 reports, and that focuses on developing and strengthening capacity building. Traditional measure 31 consists of 15 reports, and this relates to the exchange of information in the area of scientific and meteorological research relating to natural disasters. So both, again, this encompasses traditional and non-traditional measures. As we move on to the report on CSBMs, let me highlight the reports from 65 activities encompassing these countries: Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Guatemala, Guyana. And we invite and also encourage countries to continue reporting activities for 2024. So during the time frame for this year, well, actually, the time frame is up through July 15th of this year, and the OAS and the IDB is offering the support in facilitating the dissemination of these reports. Moving on to the next steps forward within the framework of the measures being reported, we encourage and invite countries to continue to upload their CSBM for 2024. The deadline is July 15th of this year. I'd also like to mention the conclusion of the preparation of the user manual or guide, and we are coordinating efforts through a new training workshop that is aimed at the users of the platform so that they can take full advantage of its resources. So with that, we continue moving forward as we support the submission and dissemination of reports. Thank you very much, Mr. Melgar. We'd like to thank Ms. De Luca, and we thank you for the presentation that you shared with us relating to the new platform. Now I offer the floor to Colonel Luis Tolmo Valdivia, who will discuss the content in the lists of confidence security building measures of the OAS and the global depository of the CSBMs of the UN. This was developed by the IADB and published by the IADB, and this is following a document. Good afternoon, Chair, Ambassador, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be able to address you this afternoon and to discuss the task handed by the chair, looking at the cooperation in the area of confidence security building measures between the OAS and the UN. I always like to start this discussion or presentation by looking at the differences between the CSBMs, but if we look at the standard considerations, we know that CSBMs are activities undertaken by countries internationally, and that they are interrelated with a focus on preventing crises in countries, strengthening peace, achieve international security, promote development, and by fostering effective cooperation. For example, we have seen in this forum so we were tasked with conducting this comparative consolidated list of CSBMs of the OAS and the UN CSBMs, a global repository. So within the framework of the 2019 framework, we looked at some differences and discrepancies relating to the number of measures that were contained in the UN depository, 66 compared to 37 for the OAS. So there was an imbalance. There were differences in terms of standardization of terminology and inconsistencies in terms of the criteria between the two lists. So the adoption of best practices allowed for better oversight, and however, some of these differences were not fully acknowledged. There was a lack of equivalencies between the two lists, and that led to the need to update them so that these could more accurately reflect activities, incorporating them within the framework of the best practices relating to the CSBM, and the standardization and updating of the measures took place in the subsequent forums, 10 leading to 47 updated CSBMs, as the Department of Public Security already mentioned, and the most recent revision was published on July 21st, 2023. Last year, the Inter-American Defense Board, together with the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security, Department of Public Security, held a workshop to provide training, and we had some significant efforts and results. We were able to update the database. This enabled a greater exchange of information between the various countries, And gaps, a 2-year gap was closed because the tool, the platform, first exhibited a lot of problems working with the Brazilian Navy and the Department of Public Security and the Office of Multidimensional Security, the OAS. With the cooperation of the IADB, we were able to close that gap. We bridged it. Of course, this is always a work in progress and can be improved upon, and we're working along those lines. This information is also updated. It's online in the OAS official website, as well as the IDB official website. What we've been discussing throughout the forum, in fact, last year we were able to come up with clearly grounded and developed joint efforts between the IDB and the OAS, and the result of these plans have provided these very successful results. Looking at some of the deliverables, the Inter-American Defense Board and the OAS, the Secretary of Multidimensional Security, have, and with the support of the Brazilian Navy, we've been able to update the infrastructure that exhibited several deficiencies. We were able to train 23 users from various countries. We wanted to be even more ambitious, and this year, with the support, all of your support, we're sure that we'll be able to increase those numbers and we'll be able to provide training to more users. We also created a tutorial by using tools that have already been published on our official web page. We are undergoing a process where we're going to provide a user's guide in all 4 of the official languages of the OAS and the IDB, and we will share that presently. What are some of the next steps forward? Pierre and Juan Carlos have already alluded to this. On June 25th, the Inter-American Defense Board will host a new user workshop working in coordination with the OAS, the Department of Public Security, and we're sure that we'll be able to register a much larger number of users in this training effort. And I think we can be even more precise in being able to capture many of these managerial sector managers so that we can skip over some of these and overcome many of these challenges. We've been able to determine that this has been an ongoing problem. We're also focused on preparing training materials together with the videos. This will be, we are also reviewing the user's guides. We want to be able to report on a timely basis. This has already been reported by the OAS. June 15th, we want to make sure that this is going to be a tool that will be highly useful to all of our countries. And that's all I had regarding the IADB's efforts. Thank you, Dr. Valdivia, for your presentation. Now, let's take this opportunity to thank the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security and the Inter-American Defense Board for the support also that the member states have offered in this very important effort. After having heard both presentations, I would like to now offer the floor to the various delegations who would like to comment and provide some of their thoughts. The Ambassador of Mexico is recognized. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, all of our colleagues who have joined us here at this forum. Mexico has recognized since the publication in 2019, the comparative study between the consolidated list of CSBMs of the UN, of the OAS, and the repository as key tools for strengthening the security measures. The methodological approach that is based on the analysis of differences and common areas and best practices provide a sound foundation for continuing with our strengthening these measures. Confidence security building measures have shown to be effective mechanisms to strengthen transparency, cooperation, and have helped to reduce tensions between states. We value the identification of additional measures in the study, including the exchange of information on security, the management of munitions, direct lines of communication established, promoting participation of women in peacekeeping operations, and the implementation of training centers, regional training centers in the area of security. We recognize the need to reflect on the relevance of updating and expanding our confidence and security building measures, taking into account the development of global challenges. And we've specifically identified opportunities to reinforce cooperation in the area of border security, disarmament, the exchange of military information, and cyber security. Mexico reasserts its commitment to dialogue and cooperation as fundamental pillars for security and international interstate relations. And we encourage countries to continue to focus on launching best practices identified in the study to ensure that our confidence security building measures continue to be effective and relevant in the face of current challenges that require a high level of responsibility and caution. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now I offer the floor to the distinguished ambassador from Panama, to the chair of the CSVM committee, representative of St. Kitts and Nevis, chair of the Forum from the Dominican Republic, Mayalin Cordero Diaz, chair of the Council of Delegates of the IADB, General Marco Antonio Alvarez Reyes, director of the Secretariat of the Council of Delegates, General Flavio Luis Oliveira, Secretariat of the Office of Multinational Security, Ivan Marquez, distinguished delegates and ambassadors in attendance. For our country, it is an honor to participate in this meeting on CSBMs. This contributes to stability between countries, providing information in the areas of doctrine, tactics, mutual cooperation, and open communications, working with the exchange of knowledge and experiences aimed at improving hemispheric security. For Panama, the approval of the CSBMs contributes to transparency, commitments between nations, and fulfilling objectives for improved and sustainable development that will generate a climate of peace and stability. It's also important to maintain a multidimensional approach in the area of hemispheric security by generating a greater awareness on the management of data, effective management of data. As Article 2 of the OAS Charter states, one of the key aims of our organization is to strengthen peace and security in the hemisphere. Should also point out that cooperation between nations and their contributions in this forum promote in highlighting and strengthening international relations, providing credibility, strengthening relations, and reducing conflicts that will achieve greater exchange at the bilateral level, sub-regional, and regional level, where we identify joint priorities and needs for improving economic development and optimizing the use of resources, sharing new technologies, and continue to strengthen hemispheric security through the generation of new defense materials by integrating countries, maintaining alliances between the various ministries of security in the Americas. We'll be able to get more effective responses to the challenges that may arise. So, having said that, we believe that the CSBMs will contribute to increase security and peace in the hemisphere by developing new activities that will benefit all nations that remain integrated in this effort, providing for confidence and security building in integral development. We promote the dialogue to strengthen commitments and to address many of the common challenges that affect the security of nations. It's also essential that we identify on a timely basis conflicts related to meteorological, natural disaster challenges, as well as maintaining and coordinating strategies and alliances with points, contact points, so that we can provide more effective results with the main objective of preserving and defending security. The efforts aimed at security measures, and in addition to reducing poverty, protecting the environment, developing social and economic, providing economic and social development, are part of the CSBMs adopted based on the geographic, social, and economic conditions of each individual country, with the aim of maintaining effective communication and coordination, and which includes verification, observation, and cooperation, as well as integration, providing training in various areas with the exchange of information, the managing of weapons, procurements, production, maintenance, munitions, providing greater transparency and security in border regions, including the exchange of law enforcement intelligence. The focus would be to promote development by generating a better understanding, strengthening relations at the inter-American level, strengthening these bonds, improving and providing the conditions that are conducive for greater cooperation in the hemisphere. And in that regard, our delegation believes that this is a vital component within security measures, and it will lead to subsequent effects in preventing crises and conflicts, supporting peace and security, developing standard procedures through exercises, including cyber security exercises, providing solutions to many of these day-to-day challenges. We believe that CSBMs need to be implemented on the basis of some specific criteria, such as
volunteers that are reciprocal, open, feasible, verifiable, and coherent. Complementarily, we need to have a comprehensive and integrated approach with a multidimensional context that is not exclusively address issues related to security, but also extend that to other areas such as social, economic, and environmental affairs, and also law, the principles of cooperation and solidarity, as well as guidelines for multilateral diplomacy. Finally, Panama is always faithful to its pacifist democratic vocation, and we reiterate our willingness to continuing to work hand in hand with all member states on behalf of the organization and building the conditions necessary to strengthen peace and security. This has a direct impact on the sustainable development and well-being of our people. Without a doubt, cooperation between states continues to contribute to achieving our shared goals of maintaining peace in our region. In this framework, I finally reiterate our trust in as an essential element in international relations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I'd like to give the floor to the distinguished delegate of the DR. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the presentations on the electronic platform, as well as the comparative study and CSBMs at the OAS. And this works to promote the confidence that we have in one another. And this was a general perspective on progress made in implementing CSBMs at the OAS and the effectiveness of continuing to move forward in this area. We would particularly like to refer to the analysis from the comparative study. That study is a valuable opportunity to reflect on the lessons learned hitherto and our ability to move forward in consolidating measures to strengthen the trust between our states. This analysis also shows us how the OAS has developed a robust framework of measures throughout the years, reflecting the commitment of member states to peace and security at the regional level. At the same time, it invites us to consider how this framework can continue to evolve in order to respond to current challenges and strengthen cooperation in a world that's constantly in flux. And one of the best practices identified in the CSBMs from the UN is focused on exchange of information and international cooperation. that can be implemented in new measures to be presented here at the OAS. And this forum is an appropriate space to continuing to explore how we can consolidate our measures, considering experiences and best practices identified, and sharing knowledge and dialogue between states will continue to be fundamental to progressing in building greater security and confidence in our hemisphere. Thank you. Thank you very much to the DR. I give the floor to the Ambassador of Ecuador. Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My delegation would like to thank you for your valuable statements and interventions made this afternoon. And we reiterate our commitment to continuing to promote peace, security, and cooperation in our hemisphere. As we have already heard from other delegations, we recognize that confidence between states is fundamental for preventing conflicts as well as building an environment of security and cooperation. That is why we are active participants in various initiatives and mechanisms at the OAS and in the IADB, and this works to promote peace and security in the Americas. Participation in exercises with other states with the aim of strengthening interoperability and the ability to jointly respond to shared threats, as well as the exchange of information on threats in the region, is part of our clear commitment to building peace, security, and confidence in the region. Our government has prioritized promoting transparency in defense. This is an ongoing state policy. And in recent periodic publications on our military's activities, we include defense activities, providing information, and also including the publication of white papers on our defense and security policy. Similarly, we take part in various initiatives on security at the OAS and in the IADB in order to consolidate regional security. Our cooperation in the fight against TOC, including drug trafficking, trafficking in persons, and other related crimes, in strengthening border security, for example, with the mirror policy with Colombia, and fighting organized transnational crime, the exchange of information, cooperation in the fight against these crimes, including a cyber resilience exercise held with this IDB, participation in peacekeeping missions, regulating imports and exports of arms, and destroying anti-personnel mines are, among others, some of the activities in which we are involved constantly. Certainly, Ecuador is pleased to receive the electronic platform for submitting reports that has been explained in detail this afternoon, and we trust that we will be effective as we take advantage of that tool and use it. Dear delegates, the CSBMs are an ongoing, continuous process, and this requires commitment and participation from all stakeholders, and we will continue in Ecuador to continue working along these lines to promote dialogue, cooperation, and transparency in the area of security and defense, as well as in the framework of the OAS and the IDB. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Brazil, please. Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to everyone at the head table, and thank you to all of the participants for their presentations. It's very important for Brazil, and I would like to underscore the contribution of Brazil's military in promoting CSBMs, particularly the Brazilian Navy, and this is through the IDB. The CSBMs have been in large part an essential instrument since the Cold War, when the world understood that transparency and dialogue were cornerstones to avoiding an exacerbation of tensions and conflict. And we look at our current policy. and it goes far beyond that situation in the past, and we have a challenge to reiterating our commitment at the hemispheric region to ensure that we're a region of trust, peace, and solidarity as a foundation of relations between our states. This is the only way that we'll be able to concentrate our efforts to promoting socioeconomic development for our people, to address our true shared enemies, that is hunger, poverty, inequality. With that in mind, we have been active participants in CSBM activities, and during the meeting of the Consultative Committee on Transparency in acquisition of conventional weapons in 2024, we presented and submitted to the OAS an innovative electronic platform for the Brazilian Navy, which was developed by the Brazilian Navy, and this is an example of using new technology for professional ends to have a tool to replace something that had previously been completely inoperable. This contributes to efficiency in complying with the standards of the convention, exchange of information by member states, and strengthening collective efforts at the regional level. This initiative was also the direct result of the Brazilian presidency of the 9th CSBM's meeting in 2021, when we identified the need to have such a tool to promote transparency and cooperation. And today, this is the most advanced electronic tool being used at the OAS, and it promotes wider, more active participation from member states in exchanging information on CSBMs. In addition to that, we have been developing the technology, and we have been the greatest user in Brazil in CSBMs, and since 2012, we have been responsible for about a quarter of the activities carried out in the organization's platforms. And this is a show of our commitment to transparency, as well as the practical application of CSBMs. And given the challenges that are inherent to this activity, I would like to invite all member states to also work on genuinely using this platform to its full extent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Brazil. I'll give the floor to Guatemala. Very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much to the chair of the Forum on CSBMs. My delegation would like to thank you for convening today's meeting on CSBMs. And it's important to recognize that today's support at this meeting from Ambassador Jacinth Henry Martin, the chair of the CSH, as well as the chair of the IADB and the Secretary of Multidimensional Security. We are delighted with the work that's been carried out by the Department of Public Security with the electronic platform for presenting reports on CSBMs at the OAS. These tools are fundamental to continuing to provide follow-up on activities as well as achievements since 2020-2024. Complying with CSBMs in the platform indicates the importance of this effort at the regional level, and we firmly believe that we need to strengthen collaboration and dialogue between stakeholders in order to consolidate our constant updating of these efforts. We also present the results shared in the reflection exercise on the recommendations contained in the comparative study and the list of CSBMs at the OAS, including the global storage of CSBMs from the United Nations. And we also thank the IADB for its role in this comparative analysis. And this allows us to implement and strengthen these measures. It also allows us to shed more light on participation by various militaries. My country is continually committed to regional security and confidence, and this is necessary for maintaining peace as well as addressing the challenges that our region faces. That is why Guatemala reiterates its commitment to the OAS to spare no efforts in complying with CSBMs at the OAS. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Guatemala. And I give the floor to the delegate from Argentina. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Warm greetings to the Chair of the Commission, to Director Oliveira, to the Secretary of Multidimensional Security, to the panelists, permanent representatives, and alternate representatives. Argentina has a historic commitment to strengthening peace, security, and transparency at the regional level, as well as our participation in CSBMs. Along these lines, we report regularly to the OAS on our CSBMs implemented, most recently in 2024. We have published 4 white papers on defense in 2019, 2023, and this includes information on the stature, doctrine, and activities of our armed forces. And we also exchange information and promote direct dialogue between security and defense forces, as well as in exchange of information in countries of the region in order to address transnational threats such as drug trafficking and terrorism. We provide information on the entry and exit of troops and other military activities, and we also participate in bilateral and multilateral meetings with countries of the region in order to strengthen our cooperation and dialogue on security and defense. For example, at the 16th Conference of Ministers of Defense in the Americas, 2023-2024. In addition, historically, we have contributed to peacekeeping operations with the United Nations, and this reiterates our commitment to international security. However, with the advancement of new technology, and it's necessary that we hold specialized debates and fora on AI and other areas, and therefore we need to adopt new CSBMs. Along lines, we believe that we should recommend and implement efforts at building mutual trust in the OAS in order to share knowledge, and this would allow us to develop technological capacities to address AI in defense. That is why we are pleased with the dialogue that is being held on new CSBMs while addressing new technology. Thank you very much. Thank you to Argentina. I give the floor to Peru. Very much, Chair. My delegation would like to thank you at the DR for convening this session, as well as thank you to the Chair of the CSH, Ambassador Jacinth Henry Martin, to the Director of the IADB, and to the Secretary of Multidimensional Security. Also, thank you very much for the presentations today at this historic headquarters at the House of the Soldier. Thank you for this opportunity to look at efforts and challenges to be using the electronic platform on CSBMs. And this is part of our shared commitment in this area. Similarly, thank you to the Dominican Republic for including this space for reflecting on various areas for developing new measures, considering new and emerging technologies. And without a doubt, this will be very vital for the future. Sure, the 47 CSBMs that were developed and implemented in the area of the OAS, including traditional and non-traditional measures, have contributed to improving security, building cooperation and transparency while strengthening relations between states of the region. It's possible for us to make even more progress if we continue to implement these measures in bilateral and multilateral, as well as regional fora, as well as using measures adopted to address shared threats between states. Currently, as we heard in today's meeting, we face international complex challenges such as drug trafficking, armed trafficking, cybersecurity. These are just some areas where Peru believes it's fundamental for member states of the OAS to continue moving forward together to strengthen cooperation in this area. Therefore, Peru values efforts made by the OAS to promote CSBMs. With regard to this, we have been carried out many activities in the organization's platform and will continue to use it. Similarly, we urge other states to continue strengthening mechanisms for cooperation between OAS member states with the aim of building shared trust and confidence and carrying out joint efforts in order to face shared challenges. We reiterate our commitment to promoting security and trust in the region, and we call on OAS member states to work together to strengthen cooperation and coordination so as to ensure a safe, prosperous future for all. Thank you. Thank you very much. To Peru, there are no further requests for the floor, and therefore I take due note of the very interesting presentations from the delegations. And I would also like to reiterate our thanks to the Department of Public Security and the SMS, as well as to the liaison advisor between the OAS and IADB for their valuable presentations. I would also like to express our gratitude and appreciation to the Brazilian Navy for its support in developing this platform. We will now move to consider the second topic of this plenary session. As noted in today's agenda, we will first see 3 presentations. Then we will hold a dialogue on potential new areas for CSBM development. First of all, we will give the floor to Admiral João Batista Barbosa, the head of the Brazilian representation before the Inter-American Defense Board. He will be presenting some reflections on the defense deliverables sector. Admiral, I give you the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. Ambassador, good afternoon, permanent representative of the DR to the OAS, chair of the 11th Forum on CSBMs. Ambassador Jacinth Henry Martin, permanent representative of St. Kitts and Nevis to the OAS, and chair of the CSH, also delegate of St. Kitts and Nevis to the IDB. Secretary Marcus from the SMS, and also representative of the IDB, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, representatives, friends, dear delegates of the IDB, and other public authorities who are with us today in person and virtually. First of all, thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity given to Brazil to present here today on our reflections on the defense deliverables sector, as well as what's happening at the IADB in order to look at this as a new measure of confidence and security building measures. We're sharing these reflections on the relationship between the CSBMs and the defense deliverables sector. At the end, we will share a proposal for more CSBMs in the hemisphere. I will be very brief. We will look at some initial concepts, CSBMs in the defense industry, and then proposal for a new CSBM, followed by a conclusion. The Brazilian representation at the IADB recognizes the importance of CSBMs for peace, stability, development, cooperation, and integration. And we understand that it is essential for us to continue our debate on renewing these CSBMs. And we will be sharing some reflections as well as arguments for a new CSBM at the OAS. And along those lines, we invite everyone to look at how a new CSBM is created, and this is developed as a catalyst for development and cooperation as well as integration. Now, according to the Santiago Declaration, CSBMs are a significant contribution to promoting transparency, shared understanding and security, as well as security and overcoming poverty and protecting the environment. According to the resolution from the OSGA, in 1996, CSBMs are part of the process aimed at building confidence, transparency, cooperation between member states to strengthen hemispheric peace and security. The OAS also believes that these measures need to be adapted to the geographic realities, as well as political, social, cultural, and environmental specificities of the region. To summarize, within the OAS, CSPMs can promote activities aimed at building shared trust and confidence between member states, facilitating cooperation and contributing to development and peace at the regional level. The defense industry, on the other hand, works to build defense deliverables, and they provide goods, services, work, or information, including arms, ammunition, transportation, communication, uniforms, materials for individual and collective use, used in defense activities. And the defense industry, therefore, might be understood as the set of activities and enterprises that work to promote defense and defense deliverables. And CSBMs have an important role in promoting stability in member states of the IADB. Those measures are essential to reducing tension, promoting communication and transparency between nations. Additionally, they strengthen cooperation between militaries in emergency situations or in cases of natural disaster. And they ensure that countries work together instead of in competition, and CSBMs are significant in promoting regional stability as a result of this. This collaboration builds mutual trust and also the development of humanitarian activities with shared knowledge and experiences. In this sense, shared trust and confidence between countries is essential for defense. And we see that raw materials all the way to the end product are part of this and part of this innovation. When we work in the hemisphere to integrate and look at optimizing resources and sharing technology, as well as strengthening collective security and safety with technological and economic benefits for all involved. By promoting this technology, we see an important effort for industrialized countries, which has a multiplying effect both for the military and civilian sectors. And we need to recognize the development and advancements achieved. This has considerably lowered any threats, and this is a particularly positive development for innovation in the region as well, and we can extend this innovation to the civilian sector with critical infrastructure, working on border threats, restoring essential services in situations of crisis, disasters, and cyber attacks.
Looking at the context involving the IDB, looking at strengthening synergies, cooperation, as we increase the effectiveness of these areas in the area of defense, the cooperation in that sector can also reinforce defense in the hemisphere, working through the ministries of defense, working with defense or international defense organizations, focused on various academic centers of studies, and fostering greater integration among the armed forces, creating robust industries that are sustainable and with a capacity to provide more effective responses and increased levels of efficiencies to deal with many of these hemispheric defense challenges that come up every day. We also look at promoting a discussion and strengthening governance in the area of dual defense measures and allow for social development as well. The IADB, as a hemispheric defense organization, has been, again, considered through its potential of strengthening cooperation, addressing those areas involving hemispheric defense, and the discussions with this could create an environment that is conducive for fostering the development of dual technologies, working with hemispheric defense sectors, taking advantage of the collective security. We have an opportunity to play a crucial role in developing more efficient industries that are more effective and greater cooperation. So the shared knowledge will generate contracts that will include strengthening confidence and security between these sectors. And in that scope, the Brazilian representative understands that the defense industry can cooperate in the realm of CSBS. So the proposal is also focused on friendshoring, which looks at providing and allocating these resources for neighboring countries, reducing the political risks and ensuring greater economic stability, reducing vulnerabilities, minimizing dependence by countries on other states. So the strengthening of partnerships, promoting cooperation with allies, and strengthening strategic and economic bonds, providing a continuity of critical materials during times of crisis, addressing logistical challenges, as well as reallocations of resources in these production chains. I also want to highlight there are several events throughout the Americas that already have active engagement by the member states. We have, for example, a expo in Brazil, Defense Expo in Colombia, in Peru, La Defense and Security in 2025 in Brazil, AUSA in the United States. This shows the importance of disseminating new advances in the defense sector to strengthen regional security, looking at expanding new involvement by this organization involved in areas of defense that includes the creation of cooperation between member states, looking at dialogues between hemispheric defense entities with a greater interconnectivity. That link between CSBMs and defense industries can also be witnessed by already existing measures, including the UN and its repository of measures, and the CSBMs, a document that identifies the measures that have been collected from countries throughout the world with the aim of providing support to countries or groups of countries, strengthening CSBMs. This looks at exploring a joint initiatives in procurement and maintenance of defense resources and assets between states. So we also believe that the new CSBMs aimed at defense not only will enable greater cooperation and integration by member states, will also contribute in a substantive way to increase security and confidence building throughout the hemisphere, to the extent that we see increased interconnectiveness between production chains, looking at dual use technology focused on regional and social development. In that regard, the IADB presented this proposal, working together with the OAS, to promote and develop defense industries through activities that include expos, seminars, conferences, workshops, and other areas that are focused on military, civilian officials, as well as public and private entities in this area. So just to give some examples of these new CSBMs, we have, for example, 2025, the Dialogue of Defense Industries. These are events where representatives from the various partner countries, industries, are invited to share their results and content in order to promote future defense agreements between, for example, production chains we find different ways of developing these new CSBMs, including defense conferences, specialized forums, also defense industry conferences to support and host these events. Our countries, our armed forces would be undertaking and promoting CSBMs that are geared to this. So in this manner, the Brazil delegation at the IADB underscores the importance of CSBMs to foster peace, stability, as well as hemispheric development, and emphasizes that the implementation of these new CSBMs in the defense sector will be a new and relevant tool to increase even further cooperation and integration of countries in the hemisphere. And ultimately, the development of these CSBMs have already been presented. This was actually a Brazilian presentation at the Inter-American Defense Board to the Council of Delegates. This is a proposed motion that was submitted. The approval of that motion by the Council of Delegates will be subject to a vote at a regular meeting. And if it's approved, this proposal will then be forwarded to the chair of the IADB and then submitted for your consideration. I just wanted to share with you some of the references for this presentation. And again, on behalf of the Brazilian delegation, we would like to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to provide you with this presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rear Admiral Barbosa, for that very interesting and very positive presentation that looks at the defense sector, that includes friendshoring, that's been highlighted actually in other forums as well. Let's move on now to two presentations relating to the need for creating confidence and security building measures in the area relating to the implementation of new technologies. Our first presentation, and it's my pleasure to offer the floor to Ambassador Claudio Peguero, who is advisor on cyber affairs at the Foreign Ministry of the Dominican Republic, who is going to be joining us online. Ambassador Peguero, the floor is yours.
Tiene la palabra el embajador Peguero.
Ambassador Peguero.
Disculpe. Buenas tardes.
Sorry. Good afternoon.
Distinguida embajadora Mayelin Cordero.
Ambassador Mayelin Cordero, chair of this first forum on confidence and security building measures. And I'd also like to join in on the protocol greetings that have already been reflected by my predecessors. Let me just start by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to address you and reiterating the DR's commitment in support of strengthening cyberspace in an effort to increase CSBMs. In an area where CSBMs are more and more complex, fostering confidence and security is essential in reducing tensions and misunderstandings among nations. Confidence security building measures in cyberspace is not only preventing effort for preventing conflict, but also a key pillar in ensuring the foreseeability of the commitments of member states and adequate response to cyber incidents. For the on behalf of the Dominican Republic, as chair of confidence security building measures in cyberspace at the OAS, it is a pleasure for me to discuss the background and the development of this effort. This was launched in April of 2017, and up to the present, we've held 5 formal meetings in 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022, and 2024. And during that last meeting, the Dominican Republic assumed the chair and Canada the vice chair of the working group. Up to the present, the group has adopted 11 confidence security building measures in cyberspace, 6 in 2021, 5 in 2023. Let me just quickly review these measures that are summarized in the chart on the right. The first measure is to provide information related to national cybersecurity policies, including national strategies, defense white papers, or security white papers that are considered relevant for the member states. Number two is to establish a contact point in order to address the implications of cyber threats in the hemisphere. Number three, establish points of contact in the ministries of defense in order to strengthen international dialogue on cybersecurity and cyberspace. Regarding that, recently the Secretariat, in its responsibility as the chair of this area, according to OAS Resolution RS 2023, we have established creating this point of contact, providing, again, establishing a link with the UN where our member states authorized to coordinate efforts with the disarmament of the UN, so ensuring that the OAS nations can align their points of contact with the working group, the CSBM's working group, with that directory. The directorate created recently within the UN. So the Dominican Republic has underscored the importance that the Directorate for Points of Contact with the UN be effectively integrated with the established regional organizations and authorities to ensure greater interoperability, facilitating communication and response to cyber threats. The working group also promoted synergies and interoperability among the various diplomatic authorities of the member states and the creators of public policies, law enforcement, judicial authorities, and responders to cyber incidents. This cooperation has been crucial to ensure that we have comprehensive coordination between the various key sectors in formulating and implementing policies in this area. A reflection of this is that the working group of the member states has already designated 101 points of contact, 83 of which relate to cyber security, 18 with foreign relations. This number continues to increase. Number 4 of the common security building measures, which is the development and strengthen capacities through activities such as conferences, workshops, seminars with public and private security authorities in the area of cybersecurity. Within the working group of the CSBMs of the U.S., we have had several training and awareness-raising activities. We've also worked on harmonizing CSBMs at the regional level with international trends and ensuring that these be recognized globally. Looking at CSBM number 5, to foster the incorporation of cyberspace and cybersecurity in basic training courses for diplomats and officials, the ministries of foreign affairs, and other governmental agencies. Number 6, foster the exchange of best practices in cybersecurity, cyberspace, and cyber diplomacy by creating a working group and other dialogue mechanisms, as well as signing new agreements with member states. Number 7 has to do with gender, to encourage and support the effective and significant incorporation of women in the decision-making processes relating to these measures. Looking at the international law, promote the discussion and development of national and international capacities regarding the implementation of international law. And number 9, implementation of the 11 voluntary standards and non-binding standards to implement these voluntarily regarding the responsible handling of cyberspace measures according to the UN Resolution 1137 and submit reports on these efforts, taking into account the implementation agreements. The Dominican Republic has actively participated in many of these initiatives, and as can be seen in terms of providing regional training in international law with regard to critical infrastructure, promoting the implementation of these 11 of these responsible conduct of cybersecurity measures. Colombia, Costa Rica, and the Dominican Republic have also been in the forefront in terms of digital security at the international level to make sure that our institutions are adequately protected in the face of emerging threats. CSBM number 10, which is to support efforts with the parties to promote the efforts and dialogue among all stakeholders that include civil society organizations, the academic community, as well as technical and technological communities, and encouraging the creation of new national systems of response to cybersecurity threats. We've made a lot of progress in creating these cyber networks through the efforts of the OAS. In 2024, the working group decided to redouble its efforts in 2024 and 2025 in the implementation of these 11 measures instead of developing new CSBMs. We're aware that new technologies, just as in the case of AI, present new challenges that will require new approaches. Nevertheless, if we see measures 1 to 6 and then 10 and 11, these apply perfectly to this context without the need of making any changes. That doesn't exclude the possibility in the future we may need to develop new specific measures in order to address AI within the realm of cybersecurity. The CSBM working group at the OAS will continue its efforts with an ambitious plan of activities for 2025, with more than 21 activities already envisioned that include strengthening capacities through the implementation of cybersecurity, cyber diplomacy training for members of the member states. So creating also global and regional forums, working together with the UN and its future permanent mechanisms, creating secure and safe platforms, reinforcing cybersecurity efforts. We also include amongst the committees for the effective implementation of CSBMs in the region. We're very appreciative to the member states for their continuous support and commitment to the agenda. We also urge member states to join efforts in order to ensure that decision makers can more effectively implement CSBMs in order to achieve more effective results as envisioned by the working group. We believe that through confidence security building measures, we can continuously strengthen cybersecurity and thus promote greater regional security. In the interest of time, I'm going to offer the floor to my colleague Isaac Morales, who's going to discuss some of the specific implementation activities and experiences. Thank you, Ambassador Peguero, for all of the information that you've shared relating to the efforts, the development of the efforts undertaken by the group relating to CSBMs in cyberspace. We find this highly valuable input. And now we offer the floor to Mr. Isaac Morales Tenorio, Director of Cybersecurity in Communication and for the Latin American region. I offer the floor now to Mr. Morales. Ambassador, Chair of the Forum, and the Chair of the Secretary for Multidimensional Security, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure for me to be able to join you in this forum in my capacity as an external expert. But I also would like to mention, after my specific background and experience, it's a pleasure for me to have led the cyberspace CSBM working group with CICTE. This was some years ago, representing Mexico. So I think it's timely for us to, and getting back to the comments of Ambassador Peguero, looking at synergies and increased interrelated activities, looking at this from the strategic and operational perspective. We see these three pillars that describe the reasons why it's so important to give greater emphasis on CSBMs in the realm of cyberspace and technology and information technology. These three pillars could be, I think, grouped. Well, first of all, within the context of the needs that we have. We know that all of the defense ministries, the security ministries, this already been discussed, how cyberspace and how related technologies have become a more prominent scenario and source of strategic measures. We have military and security doctrines that are increasingly putting the accent on cyberspace as a domain that creates tensions. So, secondly, we need to ensure in the most effective way possible. We need to be able to target our efforts toward these response to these needs. We need to look at the long history of the OAS and the Inter-American Defense Board, as well as other bodies related to hemispheric security. We need to, again, pay attention to those tools that have been effective in the past. And although they haven't been implemented 100%, they have provided and contributed to peace and stability in the hemisphere and preserved security in the hemisphere and fostered cooperation. These tools are, of course, diplomatic tools. We have multilateral tools, and among this toolkit, the confidence and security building measures need to be mentioned. Although multilateralism is a diplomatic task, there's also an area that includes the ministries of hemispheric defense and security. So we see that expressed in multilateral responses, and these need to be re-emphasized. And then we also have the timeliness pillar. We need to make sure as to how we can utilize, and tap into our experiences, such as CSBMs. And we need to maximize these opportunities. We need to create those areas that will promote more cooperation amongst the various components and also provide that in linkage with the various mandates. Ambassador, if I may, let me just highlight 6 areas that reflect today's CSBM's priorities in cyberspace. One key element, one component that we can include in this broader understanding of confidence security building measure. The first area has to do with that integration. The integration of CSBMs are essential because they're not isolated. They're not by themselves. They need to be, in this case, look at how they apply to the challenges of cyberspace. And we also see this reflected in the various standards and procedures on the responsible use of cybersecurity protocols and measures. And this is again was discussed earlier as defined by the UN, but it needs to be looked at from a hemispheric perspective as well in order to align these standards and procedures on the responsible use of cyberspace. And we know that specific hemispheric experiences, the area of international peace and security. In other words, we don't have to start from scratch. We don't have to reinvent the wheel or new terms. All we need to do is align them properly and create or establish that linkage to recent measures and milestones in hemispheric security in the realm of cooperation. This is cooperation more than offensive or defensive measures. And then the third priority looks at areas of specialization, the need to identify more and improved confidence security building measures, considering, of course, the confidence security building measures in cyberspace that are already established, and including those areas such as those described by the expert from Brazil in the area of new measures in hemispheric security that create new entry points and new opportunities for dialogue. We not only implement these within specific jurisdictions, we need to foster greater cooperation and dialogue that are essential on a broader scale, recognizing that that is part of the effort of specialists. And also, these are criteria that are key for CSPMs. And it's not enough by adopting them. It's not enough to just expand our list or catalog of CSPMs. We need to also effectively implement them. We need to support the implementation from those areas. And I think this is part of some of the lessons learned that have been taken from CSBMs in the past. And we don't need simply need to draw new ones. We need to have a clearly defined set of tools and mechanisms that includes accountability measures. Scalability is also something that our countries are requiring to creating CSBMs that not only serve or support one country or two countries or one specific region. They need to have that potential for scalability in areas of some specific cases, as well as obligations that other stakeholders may need to take on. There are some CSBMs that can be based on a private sector, academic sector that originate there, but can be then scaled up. That scalability is something that requires a more new way of thinking when we look at CSBMs. And then finally, our sixth and final criteria for creating these measures has to do with cooperation. Cooperation that in the area of cybersecurity technologies, this is indispensable to have that cooperation between other stakeholders, not just other nations or defense and security agencies and authorities, but also among other stakeholders. Specifically, when we look at the infrastructure necessary in order to address cyberspace challenges, you need to have, of course, specific cooperation with private sector entities in the design of specific cyberspace measures and security procedures. And it doesn't just happen in a vacuum at the level of governments and countries. We need to include the private sector. We need to be proactive. We need to be timely, and we need to incorporate all of this within a mindset of cooperation. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to express my appreciation for allowing me to join you in this forum. And if there are any questions regarding the design of new CSBMs and in the area of cybersecurity, we need to look at that there isn't one formula or one size fits all response. It requires a very broad-based, with overarching solutions, just as we've been addressing in this forum. And these questions could look at the following priorities. Are these measures only focused on cyber defense and cybersecurity, or do we need to also look at cyber defense and cybersecurity that are aligned with a broader definition of cyberspace, with the reminder that cyberspace is aimed at promoting greater rights, development, strengthening the rule of law. So including these three elements that are key when we look at CSBMs or any other regulatory framework or diplomatic tools in dealing with challenges of cyberspace. Will these effectively tackle the need to respond to emerging technologies? Do we need to move on to a more strategic area, including new lines of development in then also AI and all of the quantum computer all of those ingredients that are essential for upgrading cybersecurity, is this something that we need to follow closely, not just within the context of emerging technologies, or does it have a separate area? And also, what about the supply chains? What about the arms, conventional weapons, the autonomous or drones? Does this also require expanding CSBMs, looking at not just the final output, but also from the beginning, the design stage? And if within our discussions on CSBMs at the level of critical infrastructure, of information technology, of course, is it necessary to target efforts there? Because we know that behind cyberspace, behind AI, behind quantum computers, we have satellite technology, we have data centers, we have the need for energy and water support. All of these are a part of that critical infrastructure that go way beyond the digital and the platform ecosystem. So for those that are interested, I have a QR code that can link you up to this report on new and emerging cyber threats in Mexico, Latin America, and the Caribbean, that with the support of diplomatic authorities and political leaders, we would be able to address many of the questions relating to cybersecurity and defense policies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morales, for your excellent presentation. And that allows us to appreciate the need and opportunity to have CSBMs in the area of new technology. And it also reiterates the value of multilateralism to continuing addressing threats to peace and security. Having concluded the scheduled presentations, I would like to thank all of our distinguished guests for sharing their perspectives with us on this topic. And I'd like to invite them, if possible, to remain connected on the platform for the next item, where we will hear from the delegations. I now open the floor to delegations that would like to share their comments. Mexico, please. Thank you very much, Chair. My delegation would like to thank you for all of the presentations that we've listened to today, and we have taken note of them. The conversation on potential and new areas for developing CSBMs are indispensable in a geopolitical context like the current one, characterized by high complexity and volatility. In scenarios like those we face today, CSBMs take on renewed significance and critical relevance for preserving peace and stability at the regional and global levels. Mexico supports a world order based on rules, and we are staunchly committed to international law. The diagnostic presented reveals that rapid development of new technology and emerging technology, particularly in AI, is having an asymmetrical impact on our societies and states of the hemisphere. It's transforming areas on the digital agenda in areas critical for international and national security. The lack of an international regulatory framework or reports on these new technologies has led to diverging approaches, and that underscores the urgency of having mechanisms for cooperation in order to reduce uncertainty and avoid any escalation of tensions. We need to keep in mind that CSBMs come out as tools aimed at reducing military tensions between states through transparency, communication, and cooperation. Its evolution has been continuous as it adapts to new global security challenges. Today, these measures carry a very important role in managing associated risks to emerging technologies. And this is fundamental that we be able to manage the risks inherent to these technologies, such as artificial intelligence, which present features of unpredictability and high potential for dual use. Therefore, CSBMs allow us to build bridges of trust between states while facilitating the exchange of information, establishing channels for communication, both directly and also promoting responsible use and development of these new technologies. For Mexico, its dissemination is an optimal complement to what we agreed on in November 2024 in the framework of the CSH and the CAJP. It was focused on the current status of global debates on the application of international law in cyberspace. In both instances, the common denominator was the need to strengthen mutual confidence through regulatory standards that are consensual and clear. We reiterate the urgency for having a robust response from the perspective of international law and IHL in order to address the impact of these new technologies. Though we do have consensus on the applicability of international law in cyberspace, the challenge lies in moving toward a regional position that allows us to rely on those standards in order to build confidence and reduce the risk of an escalation of tensions. It's important to underscore that these issues do not mean militarizing cyberspace. Quite the contrary. In the case of a conflict, we want to avoid the regulatory the weaponization of regulations. We thank the Working Group on CSBMs, the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, for providing a fundamental space to address and regionalize international standards in the area of cybersecurity. We underscore the need to look at dialogue and inclusive cooperation with all stakeholders, including the private sector, academia, and civil society. As part of this effort, developing specific capacities has been and will continue to be a cornerstone of our shared progress toward our goals. Dear colleagues, Chair, cooperation on security needs to be based on a balanced approach of shared responsibility where all sectors shoulder their responsibility as we work to address global challenges without a narrative that may unilaterally digress responsibility or lead to a breakdown in cooperation. International dialogue is fundamental, and we must work to move toward the truth and genuine cooperation, avoiding isolation or measures that violate bilateral and multilateral commitments that were shouldered in good faith. In this sense, we reiterate our position to continuing to contribute actively in efforts aimed at adopting concrete measures in order to strengthen mutual confidence between our states based on respect for international law and sovereignty, with shared responsibility and with coordination without subordination. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Ambassador. Chile, please. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you and warm greetings to the Honorable Ambassador of the CSH, Justin Henry Martin, the Chair of the CSH, the Head of the IADB, and the Secretary of Multidimensional Security, Mr. Ivan Marquez, as well as permanent representatives, alternate representatives, guests. Chile would like to thank the distinguished panelists for their presentations, which allowed us to guide our discussion on potential new areas for developing CSBMs. We recognize that addressing this topic in the framework of the OS is a unique opportunity for us to continuing to work at the hemispheric level to promote inclusive dialogue in our national contexts. We value the presentation from Admiral Batista on the defense deliverables area of the defense industry. This is an area in the region where transparency and strengthening regulatory frameworks may lead to greater trust between states and reduce the risk of escalating tensions, as well as building shared standards for transferring development and technology. At the same time, we need to explore areas for cooperation that will allow us to promote investment and advancement in technology for dual use. And this may be a significant contribution to our economies, which often do not have the ability to work in innovation and development on their own. Dialogue on the need for CSBMs and the application of new technology discussed by Ambassador Peguero and Ambassador Morales were also of great value to Chile, and we have been working on these topics for many years in areas such as cybersecurity at the OAS. We also noted the impact of digitalization of security. Protecting data requires collaborative efforts, and this can be replicated in various international and regional instances to promote cooperation in the case of emerging threats, always while working to avoid fragmentation, as we heard from the Honorable Ambassador of Mexico. In this sense, we underscore opportunities with the OAS to strengthen the application of CSBMs in the following areas, allowing us to develop initiatives to be adopted at the international and regional level to facilitate progressive adoption and exchange of best practices, promoting interoperability of CSBMs, ensuring that we have transparency in defense and cybersecurity, and that this is shared within international frameworks, promoting initiatives, for example, in the area of the United Nations and other international fora, and South-South cooperation, PPPs, coordinating with the private sector and civil society in designing security strategies and CSBMs in a sustainable fashion. Additionally, we would like to underscore the need to focus our efforts on implementing CSBMs at the OAS. This is a great opportunity for us to strengthen hemispheric cooperation and ensure we have a coordinated approach in the face of emerging security challenges. Its application will not only allow us to promote security and transparency among states, but also it will allow us to ensure interoperability and regional mobility, as well as joint capacity building. It also opens the door to hemispheric capacities with new opportunities to adapt to our new realities and ensure that we are able to implement these measures throughout the hemisphere. And we also note the importance of gender in CSBMs and promoting inclusion and efficient, significant, meaningful leadership by women in areas related to communication and specific measures in national and international plans with the aim of ensuring that we have gender equality and reduce the digital divide as part of the gender gap when it comes to security. This initiative is also being promoted throughout the regions, particularly in Chile, Colombia, where we have been promoting this effort in the area of cybersecurity at the UN for the implementation of gender parity initiatives. We rated our commitment to strengthening CSBMs and their importance in promoting constructive, open dialogue, as well as sharing lessons learned within the OAS. These measures will allow us to continue addressing contemporary challenges on the horizon. Thank you very much. Thank you. I give the floor to Brazil. Thank you very much, Chair. Once again, it's very positive in the area of the IADB. This topic has been continually debated, and our considerations on the potential creation of a new area of CSBMs in the defense deliverables is particularly of interest to Brazil, and we are closely watching these debates at the IADB, and we expect to see the result of these deliberations to be presented, and we are certain that this will increase trust and predictability in our hemisphere. We reiterate our commitment to continuing to prioritize mutual confidence and trust in the region and incentives for other countries to adopt these mechanisms to promote transparency. We must guarantee that the Americas continues to be a space for peace and security, where the poor are able to prosper and move forward, advancing toward a more prosperous, fair society. Thank you very much, Brazil. I don't see any more requests for the floor, and so thank you very much for all of your reflections from the delegations. Thank you for your comments on these topics, and we have taken due note. And now I would like to ask that the delegations and panels share your presentations so that we can include them in the report to be presented by the chair on this meeting. Now we are moving to the closing session, and thank you very much to our distinguished guests, and we will begin the closing session. I would first of all like to give the floor to the General Director of the Secretariat of the IADB, Lieutenant General Flavio Luiz de Oliveira Pinto. General, I give you the floor. Thank you very much, Ambassador, Chair of the 11th Forum on CSBMs, Ambassador Jacinta Henry Martin, the Chair of the CSH, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, delegates, good afternoon. Today's forum was a space for dialogue to strengthen cooperation and stability at the hemispheric level, and this meeting was held as the result of a joint effort from the chair of the forum and the CSH, the IADB, the Secretariat of Multidimensional Security at the OAS, and it reiterates our shared commitment to collective peace. Throughout the event, we've had the opportunity to reflect on the importance of CSBMs as a fundamental tool to preventing conflict, promoting transparency in international relations, and consolidating mutual trust and confidence. At the regional level, this isn't just an issue of defense, it is an essential tenet of development for our nations. The debates that we heard today demonstrate that before any contemporary challenges, we've seen the issue of cyberspace, and many talked about new technology, artificial intelligence. We saw a proposal for a new CSBM, and all of these debates that we've heard are a show of how necessary it is for us to agree on and create new measures. This is an imperative. Technological advancement brings us a new opportunity, but they also require a new strategic approach to security that is more efficient and integrated. The success of this forum reflects the commitment of our participants and to building a more stable, secure hemisphere, and the imperative of the delegations and the quality of the debates demonstrate how international cooperation is the most efficient path toward addressing our shared challenges while strengthening peace and security for our region. Against this backdrop, the Inter-American Defense Board and its partners, such as the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security, have played an important and active role in promoting regional cooperation through workshops, training, exchange of information, publications, strategies, and delivering the platform currently being used at the OAS for CSBMs. We have sought to provide member states with effective tools for strengthening our collective security. We thus reiterate our commitment to continuing to work arduously hand in hand with member states at the OAS and other regional organizations with the aim of consolidating a safer, more prosperous, more cooperative future for our hemisphere. To conclude, we express our gratitude to everyone who made this event possible. Thank you to the organizers, to the specialists, and those who shared their knowledge, and above all, to the delegations themselves who were active participants in today's debates. We have our commitments shouldered, and they will serve as a foundation for concrete decisions aimed at promoting an environment of mutual trust and confidence. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, General. Dear colleagues, distinguished panelists, representatives of the member states, members of the Inter-American Defense Board, dear representatives of the OAS, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the conclusion of this 11th Forum on CSBMs, and on behalf of the Dominican Republic and as chair of this forum, I would like to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for your valuable participation and for your commitment today. Particular thanks are sent to the leadership of the IADB at this historic building, the Casa del Soldado, the Soldier's House, and the debates we heard today were extremely relevant for strengthening hemispheric security. Each intervention and presentation, each reflection were a fundamental contribution to our shared objective, moving forward toward a region where confidence and cooperation are the tenets of our international relations when it comes to security. We live in an international context which faces increasingly complex and dynamic challenges, and that includes cyber threats and challenges in the application of emerging technology and security, including the need to ensure transparency and effective exchange of information. The current landscape forces us to redouble our efforts as we build measures to promote confidence among states. Stability and peace in our hemisphere depend in large part on our ability to strengthen the ties of trust. But we also need to remember that trust is not an abstract concept or something that is earned overnight. It's a continuous process, and we have seen that it requires a commitment, dialogue, and effective mechanisms to support our initiatives. In that sense, this forum has served as a key platform for identifying strategies that are innovative, as well as best practices that allow us to continue to move forward. One of the most important aspects that we have discussed today has been the need for concrete tools to facilitate the implementation of measures that we actually adopt. In this context, the presentation of the electronic tool for the OAS is significant. Having this type of tool allows us to ensure greater transparency and efficiency in the implementation of CSBMs. We have been working to ensure that states not only adopt commitments, but they also are able to demonstrate real progress in their implementation. Similarly, we have looked at how the experiences of other international organizations, such as the United Nations, can serve as a reference for improving our own mechanisms. The reflection exercise on the comparative study of measures adopted by the OAS and those contained in the global repository at the United Nations has been key in addressing the importance of international cooperation and exchanges of best practices. On the other hand, our debates on the need to explore new areas for CSBMs and security have been particularly enriching. The changes on the global stage force us to continue adapting and adopting new strategies to address emerging threats. In this sense, dialogue on potentially including measures related to the defense deliverables sector and new technologies in the area of security show the member states' commitment to improving our cooperation mechanisms. Before we conclude, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to the CSH and its chair, who is with us today, as well as to the Inter-American Defense Board and its leadership, as well as to the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security and everyone else who has taken part in this forum. Your dedication and contributions have been essential to enriching this dialogue. You can trust that our ideas and observations shared today will allow us to move forward on firm footing toward a world where cooperation and confidence are the fundamental principles that guide our actions. This forum reiterates the member states' commitment at the OAS to advancing an institutionalization of CSBMs, and we ensure that their periodic update and adaptation to changes on the global stage will continue. That is why we will continue to take note of all of the proposals shared at this meeting in order to come up with concrete proposals for the CSH with the objective of strengthening regional cooperation and stability. Therefore, we will conclude the 11th meeting of the Forum on CSBMs. Thank you very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite the delegates to a reception just outside of the meeting room. Thank you very much.
That's good. We finished a half hour early.
I know, thank goodness.